constantly redoing tasks. So constantly starting over. It's not good enough. I need to do it again. It's not perfect enough. I need to do it again. So it can look like constantly starting things over and over and over again. Today I want to talk about perfectionism and what it looks like, how it can hold you back, and how releasing perfectionism is going to help you live such a more fulfilling life. So let's get right into it. So first I want to talk about recognizing perfectionism in your life. Like, what does it show up as? Oftentimes it shows up as something very subtle, like procrastination, putting things off, and you're not sure why. You just don't want to get into it. You don't want to do it. But that's perfectionism hidden beneath that. You're not starting because you're scared it's not going to be good enough. You're scared it's not going to be perfect enough. What perfectionism looks like is constantly redoing tasks. So constantly starting over. It's not good enough. I need to do it again. It's not perfect enough. I need to do it again. So it can look like constantly starting things over and over and over again. It can look like being overly self-critical. So whenever you're putting out there something, whenever you're doing something that you want to do, you notice that hypercritical voice being super present, talking you down, like, oh, it's not good enough, it's not beautiful enough, it's not perfect enough, nobody's gonna like it, right? It's that criticism coming up, which is actually a manifestation of that desire for things to be perfect. Another thing is setting unrealistically high standards for yourself. So, for example, wanting to start a project that you may know nothing about, and then putting that expectation on yourself to do it perfect the first time around, when you actually just need to go through this process of trial and error and just finding out what works for you instead of knowing exactly how to do it right until you're perfect at it on the first try, which is just impossible because you haven't done it before. So you need to practice, and with practice comes being better, and with actually starting comes being better. But when you have that perfectionism holding you back, you feel like you can't start because it's not perfect yet. But I'm here with you. This is exactly what I've been experiencing ever since honestly, for such a long time. I've always been such a huge perfectionist, always wanting things to be perfect until I could finally do them. So hold on, I'm with you. I know exactly how you feel. Perfectionism also disguises itself. It's not always super obvious in a sense of, oh, I'm not doing this because I want it to be perfect. Like, it's not always that on the surface. It's usually much deeper, and it can manifest as procrastination, so putting off tasks, waiting until everything's perfect, overworking, so constantly trying to better yourself while you're burning out, or obsessing over small little details that don't actually matter, but you make them matter because your perfectionism is trying to squeeze its way through to the surface. So some other examples of how it can be disguised is a fear of failure, right? If you feel afraid that you're gonna fail, that can be a disguise of that perfectionism hiding behind, like, oh, if I don't do it perfectly, I'll fail. So being afraid to fail because you don't think that you won't fail if you do it perfectly. Or trying out new things because you're scared that you may not get it right, or that you may not do it right, or that you may not know how to do it, so that's why you're not starting. But actually, the reason why you're not starting is because you think you need to be perfect at that thing to be able to do it. So once you start recognizing these small little micro ways that perfectionism can show up in your life, that's when you can start bringing awareness to those patterns and awareness to the ways that it shows up for you. And then you can start working through that, and we're going to get into that. And then you can start working through that to release perfectionism so you can feel more fulfilled, so you can feel that pressure fall away, the weight of the expectations won't bring you down anymore. And with this releasing comes the releasing of the internal beliefs that are associated with perfectionism. So I will just name a few, and maybe you resonate with them, maybe you don't. But some may be: I'm only worthy if I am perfect. Mistakes mean I'm a failure. I need others' approval to feel worthy. It's not good enough if I'm not perfect at it. So these are some of the internal beliefs that may lie behind the perfectionism, behind the procrastination, behind the fear of failure, that you can start recognizing and bringing awareness towards. And once you have that, you can start transforming them and shifting them. So the root causes of perfectionism, I just want to touch on this a little bit before we go into how to release it. So perfectionism often comes from past experiences where you may have received judgment or critiques from someone outside of yourself who thought your work wasn't good enough, who thought it wasn't perfect enough, it wasn't worthy enough. And in turn of receiving that, when you try your best, when you do as much as you can, and that feels good for you, and then you receive from your external environment someone who criticizes that, who belittles you, who judges that, you may internalize that belief that encompasses this experience, right? You may internalize the belief of, oh, if somebody else doesn't like it, it's not good enough, so I'm not worthy. If I don't live up to the expectations of things being perfect, that means I'm not worthy. So looking at what you believe to be true about the work that you want to put out there or the thing that you want to do, and then asking yourself, what does this belief say about me? Because once you make that connection, you can start shifting that inner belief about yourself, and then the outer belief will automatically shift with that. You may argue that perfectionism is good, it drives you, it makes you motivated, things will be so perfect, and it gets that fire under you of becoming better and better and better and growing and growing and growing. But with everything, too much of something is unhealthy. Too much of anything is unhealthy. And too much of your perfectionism, where it's actually getting to the point of it holding you back, is unhealthy. It creates limitations. It prevents growth instead of increasing growth. Instead of that motivator, that wanting to be better, it becomes this criticizing voice that is keeping you small. It's keeping you down. It's keeping you held back. So recognizing that and looking, okay, where can I shift this? Where can I be kinder to myself? And recognizing as well that it's holding back joy, it's holding back creativity. Because if you don't want to start something new because you're scared of failing, if you're scared of it not being perfect, how are you going to learn? How are you going to experience? How are you going to craft and become better and grow when you're too scared to start? And it just keeps you stuck in this constant loop, this cycle of self-criticism that is only meant to make you smaller and smaller and smaller. So how to move through and release perfectionism? Meeting yourself with kindness is one of the most important things that you can do here. So practicing self-compassion. Speaking to yourself as if you were a very, very close friend of yours, or as if you were a small child. Like I love this one because you have all your inner children within you, right? So when you feel this need to be perfect, or like, oh, it has to be perfect, you're not going to tell a little child that she has to be perfect and that they have to do everything right, and that if it's not perfect, they're not good enough. You don't do that. You don't tell that to a little child. So imagine you're talking to your own inner child there, right? So when you feel that perfectionism come up, when you feel that fear of failure come up, and that connection of your self-worth to what you achieve, just bring back your awareness to your inner child and speak to yourself as you would to your inner child. Another thing is embracing imperfection and sometimes aiming for good enough is far more liberating than aiming for perfect. And it really depends as well on what you're trying, on what you're doing, on what you want to put out there. And you can do this by just letting the small little details go. By letting the small, tiny little things that you're nitpicking over that don't actually matter right now, to let them go and to release them. Yesterday, someone that I admire a lot, she said something about failure, and she said there's no such thing as failure. There's only feedback. There's only feedback. So even if you do fail, it's going to help you grow. It's going to help you get to where you want to go, and it's going to help you improve and be better. And challenging your limiting beliefs. So what I touched on earlier, like the beliefs that may be underlying in your perfectionism, choose one of them. Maybe if I'm not perfect, I'm not worthy. And question that belief. Look at where it's coming from. When was the first time you felt that way? Really dive into the root. And once you have, and you can develop more understanding and acceptance towards the part of yourself that feels that way and that believes that, you can start shifting it and choose a new belief. It doesn't matter what I create. I'm worthy just because I am, for example. And start integrating that. Start telling yourself that whenever you feel that perfectionism come up in whatever way that may be. You can also ask, what would I tell a friend if they believe this about themselves? It's often a lot easier to give advice to other people than to ourselves because we have this so-called objective point of view. But once you have this belief just without any attachment to it and you pretend it's from a friend, like what would you advise for them? What would you tell them? What would you do to cheer them up, to lift them up, and then bring it back to yourself and give those things to yourself? So there's no such thing as failure. Mistakes can only show you where you can improve, where you can learn, and where you can grow. I'm going to tell you one thing that you're probably not going to like, but I'm going to tell you anyways. And that is taking sloppy action. It even gives me goosebumps. I don't want to say hate, but I don't like the whole concept of sloppy action. It feels sticky, it feels messy. I was like, no, I want it to be clean. I want it to be perfect. That's my immediate response. So that's already telling you something, but try to invite that a little bit into your life. You can also call it messy action. That one feels a bit more okay. Messy action, just doing something without attaching outcome to results. And you don't have to do this in an important project or important work things or something that's really close to you. You can just do this in a small manner as, maybe painting something or drawing something or creating something just for yourself, and then really bringing your awareness to the process. So trying to create without any attachment to the outcome. And when you notice yourself, oh, I need to do it this way, or what is going to look like, just gently redirect your attention back to the reason why you're doing this is to enjoy the process, to enjoy making mistakes, to enjoy taking messy action, to enjoy doing it anyways without feeling scared to fail. And this can both be healing. It can help you practice into some of that letting go of perfectionism tendencies. And it's fun, it's enjoyable, it gives you an opportunity to let go of result-based action. Because we're just in today's society, in this world, we're always so busy with doing things to get a certain result, with taking these steps because we want to get there. So bringing it back to just taking the steps because you want to take a step and not because it's going to get you a certain result. And just slowly practicing this, it's going to give you the opportunity to then slowly weave it into the more important things, like the the work that you want to do, the things that you want to try, whatever you want to put out there, it's going to kind of trickle into that process, and it's going to help you make the process a lot more fun, a lot more enjoyable, a lot more liberating, a lot more open and loving and kind, while also allowing you to still see, okay, where can I improve? Where can I grow? But also, where can I have fun with it? Where can I enjoy it? Where can I let go of outcome attachment for a moment and breathe and remember that this moment is all I have. The process is all I have right now, because once I'm going to get there, I'm already moving on to a different process to get to a different destination. So just stopping to smell the flowers in the process is completely okay, and especially if you have these perfectionism tendencies, or if you're just an overall ultra perfectionist like I was. I'm saying like was because I'm still working on it. I'm still working on it, but those are just some things that you can do. So the goal is not to completely eliminate effort or wanting to grow or wanting to get better or wanting to be better, but it's to just give some more compassion to yourself, some more love to yourself in that process, and to release some of the weight of the expectation that you're placing on yourself, which is not helping you grow, which is not helping you get better. It's just making you smaller and keeping you down. So looking at where you can bring more self-compassion, so this need that you have to be better, to be perfect, can actually propel you forward, and you can use it to your own advantage. But that does mean you have to integrate self-compassion, self-love, patience, allow for some joy, allow for some release of attachment. And again, it's this thing of finding that inner balance with what works for you and what feels good for you. And releasing perfectionism isn't it's not like, okay, I'm going to do this and now it's gone. Like with everything, it takes practice, it takes patience, it takes time. So also being gentle with yourself in that process and just taking it one day at a time. So now some invitations for you to take this a little bit further on your own is considering, what's one project, one thing that I want to do, one thing that I'm currently doing where I can release perfectionism today. And just choose one thing, choose one project. And maybe you're already working on something and you feel like your perfectionism has been holding you back. You can choose that one. But if there's something new that you want to try that you maybe haven't, because you feel this need that you need to be perfect before you can start, maybe choose that one. And start slowly stretching out your comfort zone by doing it anyways and embracing imperfectionism and taking maybe some of the things that I talked about today with you, so you can weave in more of that joy, more of that self-compassion already. I hope you enjoyed this video and that it may have shed some light on where your perfectionism came from and how you can kind of transform it to release it a little bit. So I hope you enjoyed this video and that it helped you, and I'll see you in the next one.